I found a hidden bunker from the Cold War. Something still inside the rusted metal door groaned in protest as I heaved it inward, the sound echoing through the suffocating silence of the woods. It had been hidden, carefully concealed behind a curtain of ivy and a fallen oak, a secret the forest had guarded for decades. I'd stumbled upon it while hiking, a glint of steel catching my eye amidst the verdant chaos. My curiosity, an insatiable beast I'd never quite managed to tame, had taken over. Now, armed with nothing but a flashlight and a healthy dose of morbid fascination, I was about to delve into the cold heart of a forgotten war. The air that rushed out of the bunker was stale, heavy with the scent of mildew and something else, something acrid and faintly metallic that made the hairs on the back of my neck prickle. I hesitated for a moment, the rational part of my brain screaming at me to turn back, to leave the past buried. But the allure of the unknown was too strong, and I stepped inside. The darkness swallowed me whole. My flashlight beam cut through the gloom, revealing a narrow corridor lined with concrete walls. The air was noticeably colder inside, the temperature dropping with each step I took. The bunker, or what I could see of it, was remarkably well preserved. Dust lay thick on every surface, undisturbed for what I could only assume were decades. There were signs of habitation, rusted metal cots, a table littered with decaying papers, and a shelf lined with empty cans. It was a snapshot of a life lived in constant fear, a life waiting for the end of the world. As I ventured deeper, I noticed a series of doors branching off the main corridor. Each was marked with a faded number, and curiosity compelled me to try them. The first few were empty, containing only more cots, storage lockers, and the occasional rat skeleton. But the fourth door, marked with the number 7, was different. It was locked. A heavy padlock secured it, the metal corroded with rust but still stubbornly in place. I tried the handle, but it wouldn't budge. A surge of adrenaline coursed through me. Why was this door locked when all the others were open? What secrets did it hold? I rummaged through my backpack, finding a small multi-tool. It wasn't ideal, but it was all I had. I spent the next hour meticulously working on the lock, the silence broken only by the scraping of metal and my own ragged breathing. Finally, with a satisfying click, the padlock sprang open. My heart pounding in my chest, I pushed the door inward. The room beyond was small, almost a cell. A single bare bulb hung from the ceiling, casting a weak, flickering light. In the center of the room stood a metal chair, and strapped to that chair was something. It was human, or at least it had been. Its skin was stretched taut over bone, its eyes were vacant, staring straight ahead. Wires snaked from its head, disappearing into a complex array of machines that hummed with a low, rhythmic thrum. The metallic scent was overpowering in this room, clinging to the air like a shroud. I stumbled back, my hand flying to my mouth to stifle a scream. This wasn't just a Cold War bunker, it was something far more sinister. It was a laboratory, a place of unspeakable experiments. The figure in the chair was being used. The machines were still running. As I stood there, paralyzed with fear, I noticed a small inscription etched into the metal plate of one of the machines. It read, Project Nightingale. My blood ran cold. I'd heard whispers, rumors of a top-secret government project during the Cold War. Something about enhancing human abilities, turning soldiers into superweapons. Project Nightingale? It was just a myth, a conspiracy theory. Or so I thought. The figure in the chair twitched. Its head lolled to the side, and its eyes, those vacant, lifeless eyes, focused on me. A guttural sound, like a rusty hinge, escaped its lips. I wanted to run, to scream, to disappear. But I was frozen, trapped in the beam of my flashlight, a deer caught in the headlights. The figure began to strain against the restraints, its body contorting in unnatural ways. The humming of the machines intensified, the lights flickered violently. And then it spoke. Help me, it croaked, its voice barely a whisper. Please make it stop. The words were slurred, distorted, but the meaning was clear. This thing, this grotesque parody of a human being, was suffering. My fear warred with a sudden, overwhelming sense of pity. Was it possible to save it? Could I undo the damage that had been done? I hesitated for a moment, then made my decision. I couldn't leave it here. I rushed forward, fumbling with the straps that held it in place. They were old and brittle, and with a few tugs, they snapped. The figure slumped forward, its head resting on its chest. I reached out to support it, and my fingers brushed against its skin. It was cold, clammy, and disturbingly smooth. As I helped it to stand, I noticed something else. Its fingernails weren't fingernails at all. They were long, sharp claws like those of a bird of prey. And its teeth, those weren't human teeth. They were rows of needle-sharp fangs. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just a victim of experimentation, it was something else entirely. Something inhuman. The figure straightened up, its head snapping back. Its eyes, now burning with a malevolent intelligence, locked onto mine. A low growl rumbled in its chest. "You freed me," it hissed, its voice a chilling rasp. "Now you will pay." It lunged. I screamed and stumbled back, my flashlight clattering to the floor. The room plunged into darkness, the only light coming from the flickering bulb overhead. I could hear it moving, its claws scraping against the concrete floor. I groped for my flashlight, my fingers trembling with fear. I found it and flicked it on, the beam cutting through the darkness. The figure was gone. Panic seized me. Where was it? I spun around, my flashlight beam dancing wildly across the room. And then I saw it. It was clinging to the ceiling, its body pressed against the concrete, almost invisible in the shadows. It moved with unnatural speed, like a spider descending on its prey. I screamed again and ran for the door, my heart pounding in my chest. I burst out of the room and slammed the door shut, desperately fumbling for the padlock. I managed to get it back on, but I knew it wouldn't hold for long. Whatever the thing was, it was strong. I ran down the corridor, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I had to get out of here. I had to escape this nightmare. As I ran, I could hear it behind me, its claws clicking against the concrete, its growls echoing through the bunker. It was gaining on me. I reached the main entrance and threw myself against the rusted metal door. It wouldn't budge. It was stuck. Desperation surged through me. I was trapped. I turned around, my flashlight beam illuminating the approaching figure. It was no longer clinging to the ceiling. It was standing in the middle of the corridor, its eyes glowing in the darkness, its claws extended. It was smiling. "Nowhere to run," it hissed. "You're mine." I braced myself for the attack, my mind racing, trying to find a way out. And then I remembered something. The papers on the table. The decaying documents I had seen earlier. I had glanced at them briefly, but now a fragment of information flashed in my mind. A diagram, a schematic of the bunker, and something else. A mention of a self-destruct mechanism. It was a long shot, but it was all I had. "Wait," I shouted, stalling for time. "I know about the self-destruct." The figure stopped, its eyes narrowing. "What do you know?" it asked, its voice laced with suspicion. "I know how to activate it," I said, my voice trembling. "I saw the schematics. Unless you want to be buried alive, you'll let me go." It hesitated, its gaze flickering between me and the entrance. I could see the wheels turning in its mind. It didn't know if I was telling the truth, but it couldn't afford to take the risk. "Show me," it said finally. "Show me the self-destruct." I led it back down the corridor towards the main control room. It followed me closely, its claws inches from my back. I could feel its breath on my neck, cold and clammy. We reached the control room and I pointed to a panel on the wall. "This is it," I said, "but you have to let me out first. I'm not going to activate it if I'm trapped in here with you." It considered my words for a moment, then nodded. "Fine," it said. "I'll open the door. But the moment you activate it, I'm coming for you." It followed me back to the entrance and unlocked the metal door. I stepped outside into the fresh air, the sunlight blinding after the darkness of the bunker. I took a deep breath, savoring the feeling of freedom. But I knew I wasn't safe yet. I still had to activate the self-destruct. I turned back to the bunker and looked at the figure standing in the doorway. Its eyes were fixed on me, its claws twitching. "Get ready to die," I said. I reached into my backpack and pulled out my multi-tool. I didn't have the schematics with me, but I remembered the general layout of the control panel. I just had to improvise. I ran back inside and started working on the panel, frantically cutting wires and rerouting circuits. The figure watched me, its impatience growing with each passing second. "Hurry up," it snarled. "I haven't got all day." I ignored it, focusing on the task at hand. I knew that one wrong move could trigger the self-destruct prematurely, killing us both. But I had to take the risk. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, I found the right combination. I pulled a lever and the bunker shuddered. Alarms blared, Red lights flashed and the ground began to tremble. "What have you done?" the figure screamed. "You've doomed us all." I ran out of the bunker as fast as I could, not looking back. I reached the edge of the woods and threw myself to the ground, covering my ears. A deafening explosion ripped through the air, sending shockwaves through the earth. The bunker collapsed in on itself, burying whatever secrets it held beneath tons of rubble. When the dust settled, there was nothing left but a crater in the ground. I lay there for a long time, catching my breath, trying to make sense of what had just happened. I had stumbled upon a hidden bunker, a relic of the Cold War, but it was more than just a historical artifact. It was a tomb, a prison, and a laboratory of horrors. And I had unleashed something terrible upon the world. I didn't know what Project Nightingale had created, but I knew it was dangerous. And I knew that I had to do everything in my power to stop it from ever escaping again. I got to my feet and started walking away from the woods, away from the nightmare I had uncovered. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew that I couldn't stay here. I had a responsibility now. I had to warn people. I had to tell them what was out there. But who would believe me? I was just a hiker, a nobody. How could I convince anyone that I had found a hidden bunker, that I had unleashed a monster from the depths of the Cold War? As I walked, I replayed the events in my head, trying to piece together what I had seen. The figure in the chair, the machines, the inscription, Project Nightingale. I remembered the rumors, the whispers of super soldiers of enhanced abilities. But what if it wasn't just about enhancing human abilities? What if it was about creating something entirely new? Something unnatural? The thought sent a shiver down my spine. I had to find out more. I had to learn everything I could about Project Nightingale. But where would I start? The government, of course. They were the ones who had created it. But how could I get them to talk? They would deny everything, cover it up. I needed proof. I needed evidence. And then I remembered something else. The papers on the table. The decaying documents I had seen in the control room. I hadn't had time to examine them closely, but I remembered seeing some official-looking letters, some reports, some photographs. If I could recover those documents, they might contain the proof I needed. But the bunker was gone. Destroyed. Buried beneath tons of rubble. It would be impossible to get them. Or would it? I stopped walking and turned around, my gaze fixed on the crater in the distance. It was a long shot, a desperate gamble. But I had no other choice. I had to go back. I had to try to recover those documents. I owed it to the world. I owed it to myself. I spent the next few days preparing for my return to the bunker site. I bought a shovel, a pickaxe, a gas mask, and a Geiger counter. I studied maps of the area, trying to pinpoint the exact location of the control room. I researched Project Nightingale, scouring the internet for any information I could find. But there was very little. Just rumors, whispers, and conspiracy theories. It seemed as if the government had done a very thorough job of erasing all traces of the project. Finally, I was ready. I packed my gear and headed back into the woods. The hike to the bunker site was long and arduous. The forest was eerily silent, as if the animals knew something was wrong. I reached the crater and stopped, my heart sinking. The destruction was even worse than I had imagined. The ground was scorched, the trees were uprooted, and the air was still thick with the smell of smoke and decay. It was a scene of utter devastation. I put on my gas mask and started digging, slowly and methodically. The work was backbreaking, but I refused to give up. I had to find those documents. I had to find the truth. Hours turned into days, and I made little progress. The rubble was heavy and unstable, and I was constantly afraid of triggering another collapse. But I kept digging, driven by a sense of desperation and a burning desire to uncover the secrets of Project Nightingale. And then on the fourth day, I found something. A piece of metal, twisted and blackened, but still recognizable. It was part of the control panel. My heart leaped with excitement. I was getting closer. I dug faster, ignoring the pain in my muscles, the burning in my lungs. And then I saw it. A metal box buried beneath a pile of rubble. It was dented and scratched, but it was intact. I pulled it out and opened it. Inside were the documents. The letters, the reports, the photographs. They were damaged, but still legible. I had done it. I had found the proof. I sat down on a pile of rubble and started reading. The documents told a horrifying story. Project Nightingale was even worse than I had imagined. It wasn't just about enhancing human abilities. It was about creating a new species. Scientists were experimenting with gene splicing, combining human DNA with that of animals. They were trying to create the ultimate weapon, a creature that was both intelligent and ferocious. And they had succeeded. Subject Zero, as it was called, was stronger, faster, and more deadly than any human being. But it was also unstable. It was prone to fits of rage, and it had difficulty controlling its animal instincts. The scientists had tried to control it, to suppress its violent tendencies, but they had failed. Subject Zero had escaped, and now it was loose in the world. I looked at the photographs. They showed Subject Zero in its early stages of development. It was a grotesque creature with human features twisted into something monstrous. Its eyes were cold and soulless. Its teeth were sharp and pointed. Its claws were long and deadly. It was a nightmare made flesh. I closed the box and stood up. I had to get these documents to the authorities. I had to warn them about Subject Zero, but I knew they wouldn't believe me. Not without more proof. I needed to find Subject Zero. I needed to capture it or at least document its existence. It was a dangerous mission, a suicide mission, but I had no choice. I was the only one who knew the truth. I was the only one who could stop it. I spent the next few weeks tracking Subject Zero. I followed the trail of destruction it left behind, the mangled bodies of animals, the overturned cars, the shattered buildings. It was moving fast, heading towards the city. I knew that it was only a matter of time before it attacked. I had to stop it before it killed innocent people. I armed myself with a tranquilizer gun, a hunting knife, and a camera. I knew that I was no match for Subject Zero in a direct confrontation, but I hoped to be able to catch it by surprise. I finally tracked it to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. I crept inside, my heart pounding in my chest. The warehouse was dark and silent. The air was thick with the smell of dust and decay. I moved slowly, carefully, my senses on high alert. And then I saw it. Subject Zero. It was standing in the middle of the warehouse, its back to me. It was even more terrifying than I had imagined. Its muscles were bulging, its claws were extended, and its eyes were glowing in the darkness. It turned around and faced me. It smiled. "I've been waiting for you," it said. "I knew you'd come." I raised my tranquilizer gun and fired. The dart hit Subject Zero in the chest. It staggered back, but it didn't fall. It ripped the dart out and threw it to the ground. "You think that will stop me?" it said. "I'm stronger than you can imagine." It lunged at me, its claws outstretched. I screamed and dodged out of the way. It crashed into a pile of crates, sending them tumbling to the ground. I ran for the door, but it was too late. Subject Zero was faster than me. It grabbed me from behind and threw me against the wall. I hit the ground hard, my head spinning. Subject Zero stood over me, its claws dripping with blood. "This is the end," it said. "You can't stop me." I closed my eyes, waiting for the end. But it never came. I opened my eyes and saw a figure standing behind Subject Zero. It was a woman. She was wearing a lab coat and holding a gun. "I'm sorry," she said to me, "but I can't let you die." She raised her gun and fired. Subject Zero screamed and fell to the ground. The woman ran over to me and helped me to my feet. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Who are you?" I said. "I'm Dr. Emily Carter," she said. "I was one of the scientists who worked on Project Nightingale." "You created this monster?" I said. "I tried to stop it," she said, "but they wouldn't listen to me. They were too obsessed with creating the perfect weapon." "What are you going to do now?" I said. "I'm going to destroy it," she said. "I'm going to make sure that it never hurts anyone again." She pointed her gun at Subject Zero and fired again. The creature twitched and then lay still. Dr. Carter turned to me. "It's over," she said. "It's finally over." We left the warehouse together and walked into the night. I don't know what the future holds, but I know that I'll never forget what happened in that hidden bunker. I found a secret, a dark secret, and it changed my life forever. The Cold War may be over, but its legacy lives on. And sometimes the things that we bury in the past come back to haunt us. The end. Or is it? A faint beeping sound emanates from the crater of the destroyed base. A single light flickers on a buried console. A metal hand twitches. Project Nightingale may be down, but it is not out. The nightmare is far from over.